On a quiet February morning in 2023 in the peaceful village of Lung Mei Tsuen, Hong Kong, a nightmare was quietly brewing behind the walls of a rented house. Just days earlier, Choi, one of the city's rising stars in fashion and social media, had vanished. Friends wondered why she had not answered calls. Her family grew uneasy, but no one could have imagined the horror waiting to be uncovered. When police finally forced open the doors of that house, what they found would horrify even the most seasoned officers. In the refrigerator, they discovered severed human legs. In a large soup pot on top of a stove, floated what appeared to be a human skull, boiled together with carrots and radishes. Around the room were knives, meat grinders, chainsaws, cleavers, aprons, and plastic raincoats. Tools not of cooking or carpentry, but of a grotesque slaughter. The body parts belonged to Choi. She was only 28 years old. A woman celebrated for her elegance, her beauty, her presence at Paris Fashion Week, her magazine features, her reputation as someone who seemed to float effortlessly between the elite world of high fashion and the everyday warmth of a Hong Kong daughter who loved her family. The images of her remains stunned the world. News outlets from CNN to BBC to local Hong Kong papers ran front-page stories. International audiences were horrified. But behind the gore, behind the brutality, there was something even more sinister. A story of betrayal and greed that had been growing for years, woven into the very fabric of her family life. So who was Choi? How did compassion, loyalty, and generosity lead her straight into the deadliest trap of all? Abby was born on July 15, 1994. She grew up between Hong Kong and Hainan. Her father, Chung Yinfa, was a businessman who traded in metals and construction. When her mother later remarried a restaurant owner, Abby found herself living in a blended family with a stepfather and two half-sisters. Unlike many who were raised in privilege, Abby was not defined solely by money. Those who knew her remembered her gentleness, her willingness to help, her conviction that caring for others was not a burden, but a duty. From an early age, she demonstrated the kind of compassion that would become both her most beautiful quality and, tragically, her greatest vulnerability. When Abby was 15, she met Alex Kwong. He came from a modest background, nothing remarkable, but to Abby, still a teenager, he was charming enough. Their romance bloomed quickly. At 18, she married him. Together, they had 2 children. For a moment, it seemed like the start of a fairy tale, a young couple in love, building a family together. But Alex was not who he seemed. Beneath the surface of their marriage was a man plagued by irresponsibility, criminality, and greed. He scammed friends, defrauded acquaintances, borrowed money he never intended to repay, and lived beyond his means. Eventually, he found himself on the run from police. Again and again, it was Abby who bailed him out, paying debts, smoothing scandals, shouldering the burden of his failures. She supported not just him, but his entire family. She covered bills, hired staff, paid for their apartments, funded their lifestyle. While Alex indulged in selfishness, Abby played the role of savior. But even her patience had limits. Eventually, their marriage collapsed. They divorced. And yet, remarkably, Abby still did not abandon them. Out of loyalty to her children, and perhaps out of compassion for a family she had once called her own, she continued to support Alex's relatives financially. Life moved forward. Abby found new love with Chris Tam, son of the founder of Tam Jai International, one of Hong Kong's most famous noodle chains. Chris was devoted, reliable, and proud of her. Although they never legally married, they built a life together and welcomed 2 more children. With Chris, Abby seemed to finally find stability and happiness. She became a fashion icon, walking runways at Paris Fashion Week, appearing in L'Officiel Monaco, gaining over 100,000 followers online. She invested in real estate, gave generously to charities, supported animal welfare projects. Outwardly, she had it all: success, beauty, love, family. But the past never fully let her go. The Kwongs, the family of her ex-husband, remained entangled in her life, especially through the 2 children she shared with Alex. And that connection would prove deadly. In 2019, Abby made a decision that would come back to haunt her. She purchased a luxury villa on Kadoorie Hill, one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Hong Kong. But instead of putting the property in her own name, she placed it under the name of Alex's father. Some reports suggested she did this to safeguard her children's future, creating a trust-like arrangement to ensure they would always have a home. To Abby, it seemed generous, practical, forward-thinking. To the Kwongs, it became something else entirely. Proof that the property was theirs, that Abby owed them, that they had rights far beyond what she had ever promised. By 2023, Abby decided to sell the villa. Her plan was simple: use the funds for her children's education, continue to provide for Alex's family by helping them purchase another apartment, and also invest in new properties. She thought it was a fair compromise, but to the Kwongs, it was betrayal. In their minds, the villa belonged to them outright. Selling it was an insult. Arguments flared, resentment festered, and somewhere in those heated exchanges, a line was crossed. On February 21, 2023, Abby left her apartment at Manhattan Hill, dressed in elegant white and carrying a small handbag. Waiting for her was a white 7-seater van. Driving was Anthony Kwong, her former brother-in-law. She thought she was heading to a routine meeting, but it was a trap. As they passed through Lion Rock Tunnel, her ex-husband Alex climbed into the car. Witnesses would later describe the atmosphere: tense, suffocating, voices raised, words exchanged that carried the weight of years of bitterness. In that vehicle, surrounded by people she had once loved and trusted, Abby's fate was sealed. They drove her to Lung Mei Tsuen village, to a house rented only weeks earlier by the mistress of her former father-in-law, a retired police sergeant. But this was no ordinary home. There were no beds, no decorations, no family photographs, only stark furniture, a refrigerator, plastic sheets, and an array of tools: cleavers, chainsaws, grinders. It had been prepared like an abattoir. It was quite literally a death house. Neighbors later recalled odd sounds: faint chopping noises, slamming doors, raised voices. Some thought it was just a quarrel, nothing unusual. No one realized that inside, a young woman's life was being violently erased. Abby was killed, dismembered, her legs stored in the refrigerator, her skull boiled in a pot with carrots and radishes. The killers disguised her remains as ordinary kitchen waste. They wore aprons and masks as they worked, as if slaughtering livestock. The clinical precision, the preparation, the sheer coldness of it all shocked even veteran investigators. This was not a crime of passion. It was deliberate, calculated, chilling. Within days, Hong Kong police pieced the puzzle together. Dashcam footage traced the van's journey. DNA confirmed Abby's remains. Financial records revealed the escalating dispute over the Kadoorie Hill villa. On February 24th, only 3 days after she vanished, arrests were made. Alex Kwong was caught, along with his brother Anthony, their father and their mother. The retired sergeant father-in-law, once trained to enforce the law, now stood accused of masterminding the cover-up, using his knowledge of police procedure to hide evidence. The revelations horrified the public. How could a woman who had given so much, who had continued to support her ex-husband's family even after divorce, be betrayed so completely? Was it greed alone? Or entitlement, the belief that her generosity would never end? As details of the case emerged, the story grew darker. Police revealed that the house in Lung Mei Tsuen had been rented specifically to carry out the crime. Chainsaws and grinders had been purchased in advance. Plastic raincoats hung neatly on hooks, ready for use. Even the cooking of her skull appeared to be an attempt to destroy evidence. It was premeditation in its purest, most horrifying form. Public mourning swept across Hong Kong. Fans flooded her social media pages with tributes. Friends spoke of her generosity, her loyalty, her ability to make others feel special. Animal welfare groups remembered how Abby and her friend Bao Tai had donated millions to care for stray dogs and cats. International fashion magazines republished her photographs, reminding the world of her grace. The contrast was brutal. A woman remembered for kindness, destroyed by the greed of those closest to her. For her family, the grief was unbearable. Her mother collapsed when informed of the discovery. Her children were shielded from the full truth, too young to understand the cruelty of what had happened to their mother. Chris Tam, her partner, issued a statement that despite the horror, Abby would always be remembered for her light, not her death. The trial is still ongoing as of 2025, and it is expected to extend well into the year. The legal process grinds slowly as defense teams argue and prosecutors build their case. But for the public, the verdict already feels clear. This was betrayal in its most extreme form. This was greed consuming gratitude, turning family bonds into weapons. And yet amid the darkness, Abby's legacy shines. She is remembered not for the brutality of her death, but for the compassion she carried in life. The charities she supported continue their work. Her children, though scarred by loss, are raised with the hope that her kindness will echo in them. The story of Abby Choi is not just a true crime tale. It is a warning, a reminder that generosity, if unchecked, can be exploited, that trust, if misplaced, can become fatal, and that sometimes the greatest danger comes not from strangers, but from those we once called family. So I ask you, what do you think? Was Abby betrayed purely for money, or was there something deeper? Resentment, entitlement, a belief that she would always forgive? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them all. And if this story shook you as much as it shook me, don't forget to subscribe to Crimnest, where every week we uncover the darkest, most haunting true crime stories from across Asia and beyond. Until next time, stay safe.